The Great Judgment and Exile Captain Sarah Chen walked slowly through the massive corridors of the Galactic Council station. Her boots echoed against the polished floors that stretched endlessly in all directions. The walls rose so high above her that she could barely see the ceiling. Everything here was built to make visitors feel small and unimportant. That was exactly what the council wanted. Behind her walked the rest of the human delegation. Dr. Marcus Webb carried files containing decades of human achievements and peaceful missions. Colonel Rita Santos kept her military bearing despite knowing that her weapons had been taken at the entrance. Ambassador David Park tried to maintain his diplomatic smile, but worry lines showed around his eyes. They had been summoned here to answer for humanity's crimes. What crimes, Sarah wondered? Helping sick aliens recover from plagues, teaching primitive species how to grow better crops, defending trade routes from pirates? If these were crimes, then humanity was guilty as charged. The Judgment Hall doors opened before them with a sound like thunder. Sarah stepped inside and immediately understood why the council chose this place for their trials. The room was designed to intimidate. Thousands of alien beings sat in curved rows that rose up around a small circle in the center. Every eye, tentacle, and sensor in the room focused on the four humans as they walked to their designated spot. The air tasted wrong here. It was too clean, too processed. Sarah could smell the fear sweat from her own team mixed with strange alien scents she could not identify. The temperature was cold enough to make her shiver, but she refused to let it show. High above them all, the Supreme Arbiter rose from his throne. Kethvar was a Zephyrian, one of the ancient species that had ruled the galaxy for over 5,000 years. His blue-gray skin seemed to glow with its own light, and his forearms moved in perfect coordination. When he spoke, his voice filled every corner of the massive hall without any amplification device. "Humans of the planet Earth," Kethvar began, his tone as cold as the space between stars. "You stand accused of violating the sacred laws of galactic order. You have expanded your influence too rapidly across too many systems. You have shared advanced technology with species that were not ready for it. You have interfered in conflicts that were none of your concern." Sarah felt anger building in her chest. Every accusation was about helping others. When the Altarian colonies were dying from a genetic plague, human doctors had worked around the clock to find a cure. When the mining world of Kepler 442 was attacked by raiders, human ships had arrived to defend innocent families. When 3-star systems faced economic collapse, human economists had shared their knowledge freely. "We helped people who needed help," Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "We shared our knowledge with those who asked for it. We defended the innocent from those who would harm them. How can these actions be called crimes?" A wave of angry sound swept through the hall. Some aliens clicked their mandibles, others released chemical clouds that probably indicated displeasure, and a few made roaring noises that echoed off the walls. Kethvar raised one of his 4 hands and silence fell immediately. "That response demonstrates exactly why you are here," the Supreme Arbiter replied. "You do not understand the natural order of things. For 5 millennia, we have maintained galactic peace through a simple principle. Every species has its place and every place has its species. The strong lead, the weak follow, and everyone accepts their role." Dr. Webb stepped forward, his datapad glowing with information. "Supreme Arbiter, if I may present evidence of the positive results of human activities. In every system where we have established cooperative relationships, we see improved living conditions, reduced conflict, and accelerated technological development. Our methods work." "Your methods create chaos," Kethvar responded sharply. "You give hope to species that should accept their limitations. You teach the weak to believe they can become strong. You make inferior beings think they deserve equality with their betters. This disrupts the balance that has kept our galaxy stable for thousands of years." Sarah looked around the hall at the thousands of alien faces staring down at her. Some showed anger, others fear, but she also saw something else in many eyes: curiosity. These beings had heard about human activities across the galaxy. They knew about the medical breakthroughs, the peaceful solutions to ancient conflicts, and the prosperity that followed human cooperation. "You fear us," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Not because we are violent or aggressive, but because we prove that your system is wrong. We show other species that they don't have to accept their assigned place in your hierarchy. We demonstrate that cooperation between equals produces better results than domination by the strong." The hall erupted in noise again. This time, not all the sounds were angry. Sarah heard what might have been cheering from some sections, mixed with the furious protests from others. The council had maintained power by convincing everyone that their way was the only way. Human success threatened that foundational lie. Colonel Santos stepped up beside Sarah. The military officer had fought in more battles than most of these aliens had lived through years, but her voice was calm and measured. "Before you speak your judgment, remember this moment. Remember that we offered friendship and received hostility in return. Remember that we tried to work within your system before you forced us outside of it." Kethvar's skin color shifted to a deeper blue, which Sarah had learned indicated extreme anger in Zephyrians. "The Galactic Council finds humanity guilty of all charges. Your sentence is immediate and permanent exile from all council space. You have exactly 1 galactic standard year to remove every human colony, ship, and citizen from our territory. After that deadline, any human presence in council space will be considered an act of war and responded to accordingly." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Exile meant abandoning colonies where millions of humans had built their lives. It meant leaving behind friends from other species who had worked alongside humans for decades. It meant taking children away from the only homes they had ever known. Ambassador Park's diplomatic training finally broke. "You cannot do this. We have established families here, built communities, formed bonds that span generations. Some of our people have never even seen Earth." 1 year, Kethvar repeated. "Not 1 day longer." Sarah felt something cold and determined settle in her mind. The shock and sadness were still there, but they were being overwhelmed by something stronger. The council thought they were destroying humanity by sending them into the unknown regions of space. They were wrong. She walked to the exact center of the judgment circle and looked up at all the alien faces surrounding her. When she spoke, her voice was steady and filled with quiet confidence. "You think you are sending us to die in the empty darkness between stars. You believe that without your permission and your trade networks, humanity will fade away and be forgotten." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You are making the biggest mistake in galactic history." The hall became completely silent. Even Kethvar leaned forward to hear what the human would say next. "We will leave your space," Sarah continued. "We will take our families, our dreams, and our knowledge with us. But we will not disappear. Somewhere out there in the regions you consider worthless, we will build something new, something better than what you have created here." She turned slowly, making eye contact with beings from dozens of different species. "And when we do, every intelligent being in this galaxy will see it. They will see that there is another way to live. A way without artificial hierarchies, without being told that they must remain weak because the strong demand it, without fear of trying to improve their condition." Sarah's voice grew stronger with each word. "You exile us today because we give people hope. But hope is not something you can destroy by sending it away. Hope spreads. Hope grows. Hope finds a way to survive and thrive even in the darkest places." The human delegation began walking toward the exit. As they moved through the hall, Sarah heard whispers from many of the alien spectators. Not all of them supported the council's decision. Some were already wondering what the humans might accomplish in their exile. At the doorway, Sarah turned back one final time. "Thank you," she called out to Kethvar and the assembled council. "You have just given humanity the greatest gift possible. You have set us free from your limitations. When next we meet, you will see what free humans can accomplish." The massive doors closed behind them with a sound like breaking thunder. Outside the judgment hall, the 4 humans stood in silence for a long moment. They had just been sentenced to exile, But somehow Sarah felt more hopeful than she had in years. "So what now?" Dr. Webb asked quietly. Sarah smiled, and for the first time in months it was a real smile. "Now we go home and prepare for the greatest adventure in human history. We're going to build an empire out there in the dark, and it's going to be everything the Council fears most: free, equal, and unstoppable." Rise of the new Empire Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the starship New Horizon and watched 12 massive colony ships move through the darkness of unexplored space. It had been 18 months since the exile began, and the fleet of refugee ships carried nearly 10 million humans toward an uncertain future. The Council had given them 1 year to leave, but it had taken 8 months just to build ships large enough to carry everyone. The New Horizon was the largest vessel humans had ever constructed. 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide, it contained entire cities within its metal walls. Schools, hospitals, manufacturing centers, and even parks with real trees created a living community that could sustain itself for decades if necessary. Children who had been born on Council worlds now played in corridors that would be their home for years to come. "Captain," called Navigation Officer James Park from his station, "we're receiving some kind of signal from the unexplored region. Ahead. It's artificial, but not using any communication protocols in our databases." Maria walked over to examine his display. After months of traveling through empty space, any sign of intelligent life was significant. The signal was weak, but definitely showed patterns that indicated someone was trying to communicate. "Could it be a distress call?" she asked. "Possibly," James replied, adjusting his instruments. "The signal is coming from what appears to be a massive space station. It's not moving under its own power, just drifting in the void." Maria made her decision quickly. "Change course to intercept. Signal the rest of the fleet to follow. After months of empty space, I want to know who else is out here." 3 days later, they were close enough to see the source of the signal clearly. It was indeed a space station, but unlike anything in human or Council databases, instead of the geometric designs favored by most species, this structure seemed to grow like a living thing. Curved sections flowed into each other in patterns that suggested organic growth rather than mechanical construction. "Captain," reported Communications Officer Lisa Wong excitedly, "we're receiving a stronger signal now. Our universal translator is having difficulty, but I think someone is trying to talk to us." "Put it on speakers," Maria ordered. Static filled the bridge, then slowly cleared into what was definitely a voice. The words were in no language any human had heard, but there was unmistakable intelligence behind them. The tone suggested someone very old and very tired. After several hours of work with the translation systems, the message became clearer. "Unknown vessels, you are not of the Council. Your ships are unfamiliar to us. Are you friends or enemies?" Maria stepped forward to the communication station. "This is Captain Maria Santos of the human vessel New Horizon. We mean no harm. We are refugees seeking a new home in this region of space." There was a long pause, then the voice returned with what sounded like surprise. "Humans? You are the ones the Council cast out? We heard their broadcasts declaring you dangerous criminals. The Council exiled us because we helped other species and refused to accept their rigid hierarchy," Maria explained. "We believe that all intelligent beings deserve to be treated as equals. What about you? Are you also refugees from Council? Space?" The sound that came through the speakers might have been laughter, but it carried notes of deep sadness. "We are the Ethereals. The Council destroyed our homeworld 400 years ago when we refused to provide them with our energy, manipulation technology. They declared us terrorists and expelled us from civilized space. We have lived here in the darkness ever since." Maria felt her heart race. If there were other exiles out here, humanity might not be as alone as they had feared. "Would you be willing to meet with us? We would like to learn about each other and perhaps discuss mutual cooperation." 8 hours later, Maria stood in the New Horizons main conference room facing the most beautiful being she had ever seen. The ethereal representative seemed to be made of living light, its form shifting and flowing like aurora in a planetary atmosphere. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music. "I am called by the distant stars," the being said in English that had been learned through their communication exchanges. "I speak for the survivors of my people, We have watched your ships for several days. Your crews work together with an efficiency and harmony we have not seen since before the Council's betrayal. Maria nodded respectfully. We learned that we are stronger when we help each other rather than when we compete. What about your people? How many survived the Council's attack? 20,000 on this station, called by the distant stars replied, its light form pulsing with sad colors. But we know of others in this region. The crystalline hives exist 2 systems away from here. The Council exiled them for being too different to understand. The aquatic collectives live among the asteroid fields beyond the nebula. There are many species out here, all cast out by the Council for various reasons. Over the following weeks, Maria and her team worked with the Ethereals to contact other exile groups. Each species had its own story of Council betrayal and abandonment. The crystalline beings had been exiled for thinking in ways too alien for the Council to control. The aquatic collectives had been cast out for refusing to abandon their ocean worlds to Council mining operations. The machine intelligences had been exiled simply for achieving true artificial consciousness. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the fleet's chief scientist, spent her days learning from technologies that the Council had tried to suppress. The Ethereals could manipulate energy in ways that made human fusion power look primitive. The crystalline beings understood quantum mechanics so intuitively that they could create impossible materials by thinking about them. The aquatic collectives had mastered biotechnology that could terraform dead worlds in decades instead of centuries. But it was psychologist Dr. Michael Chen who made the real breakthrough in understanding why these diverse species could work together when Council doctrine said it was impossible. He had a gift for understanding how different minds worked, finding common ground where others saw only insurmountable differences. They're all afraid, he explained to Maria one evening as they watched human children playing with young ethereals in the station's recreation areas. Every species here has been hurt by the Council. They want to trust again, but they've learned that trust can lead to betrayal and pain. How do we change that? Maria asked, watching a human girl teaching a young crystalline being how to play a simple game. Michael smiled as he observed the natural cooperation happening around them. We show them something they've never seen before, a society where being different is not just tolerated but celebrated, where every species contributes according to their strengths instead of being forced into artificial roles. The breakthrough came when pirates attacked a joint exploration mission. The raiders expected easy prey, isolated aliens with no one to help them. Instead, they found human ships fighting alongside ethereal energy weavers and crystalline quantum warriors. The pirates were not just defeated but completely overwhelmed by the coordinated response. More importantly, something fundamental had changed in how the exile species saw each other. The crystalline collective mind sent a message that the translation systems picked up clearly. Human friends, your actions speak louder than Council lies. You risk your lives for strangers. This is not the behavior of criminals or chaos bringers. Within days, representatives from 15 different exile species arrived at the growing fleet around the ethereal station. They came to see for themselves if the humans were truly different from the Council species they had learned to fear. Commander Robert Kim had been training human security forces for the journey, but now he found himself working with alien volunteers whose abilities amazed him. An ethereal named Bright Edge of Tomorrow could disable entire ships by manipulating their energy systems. A crystalline tactical specialist called Many Thoughts as One could process battle information faster than any computer system. This shouldn't work according to any military doctrine, Robert told Maria after watching his mixed species units run training exercises. You can't combine forces this different and expect them to function effectively. Maria nodded as she watched human engineers working alongside alien specialists to design ship configurations that no single species could have imagined. Maybe that's because we're not trying to make them like us. We're trying to learn from each other and create something entirely new. The moment that changed everything came when the combined fleet discovered a perfect star system on the edge of known space. It contained worlds suitable for every species in their alliance, terrestrial planets for humans, energy-rich gas giants for the ethereals, mineral-rich asteroids for the crystalline beings, and ocean worlds for the aquatic collectives. As the first shuttles landed on the surface of what they decided to call Unity Prime, Maria realized that the Council had made a terrible mistake. They had not just exiled humanity. They had created the conditions for something entirely new to emerge. A civilization where being different was not a crime, where helping others was not dangerous, and where the word exile was starting to mean freedom. Standing on the bridge of the new horizon as it entered orbit around humanity's new home, Maria smiled and activated the long-range communication system. It was time to send a message back to Council Space, not of conquest or revenge, but of hope. To all beings in Council Space who dream of something better, she broadcast on all frequencies. Know that such a place exists. We are the Unity Alliance, and we welcome all who seek freedom, equality, and the chance to build a better future together. The Council thought they were ending our story by sending us into exile. Instead, they gave us the opportunity to write the first chapter of a new, galactic civilization. The message would take months to reach Council Space, but when it did, it would plant seeds of change that no amount of force could stop. The exiles had become something the Council feared more than any army. Proof that their way was not the only way, and that something better was possible.